Welcome to
Got him on the hold.
Christian Talk Radio, where you'll find straight talk from people with good old common sense.
I trust your opinion.
And now, for your host, she's putting sense back into nonsense.
Absolute insanity.
Well, you can hear me on the radio. You want to turn me on, turn on your stereo. You can sing along while they're playing our song. How you done me wrong, baby, crank it up.
And now, your host, Beth Ann.
And I welcome you today to CSC Talk Radio. It's my honor, my privilege, and my pleasure to be here with you today. Well, it was said once upon a time, we'll hear that giant sucking sound as jobs leave this nation. The famous words of Ross Perot back in 1992 during a presidential debate. Standing beside him was Bill Clinton and George Herbert Walker Bush. They laughed at his charts, but he was absolutely correct regarding free trade, one-way NAFTA. But what if? What if things were made in America again? So, why does it seem like everything is made somewhere else? And isn't that causing a problem? What can be done about it? The little community that I live in once had a woolen mill. At one time, it had a potato chip factory. It had a jacket factory. These companies hired the locals. It had Hex Saddlery. Numerous stores of mom and pops. We had Reed's Department Store, Hills Hardware, Western Auto, Family Shoe Store, Harris Furniture, a fabric store, which I can't remember the name of, TG&Y Dime Store, a Coast to Coast Hardware, a Sears catalog store with a limited amount of items on the floor. None of these exist today. The shops and the buildings around the courthouse square are gone. Uptown and downtown closed. There were more local cafes and full-service gas stations, but most are gone now. We are, unfortunately, not the exception. But this seems to be the norm. And those dilapidated old buildings are the telltale sign of bad international trade agreements. This is why I have been trying so hard to bring on new advertising sponsors with CSC Talk Radio that are made in America products and companies. You know, CSC Talk Radio is made in America. We're trying our best. We owe them all our allegiance. And only we, the people, the consumers, can make their companies successful. As a rule, the products are higher quality. They employ Americans right here in the communities that they exist in. Families do better. The money stays here in the communities in the USA. It all makes sense, right? So why do we try to save a dime or a buck here or there, knowing we're giving that money to another country and to families outside our communities and our country, while our children need WIC programs and welfare programs, breakfast programs at the public school? Why would we do that? Again, why does it seem like everything is made somewhere else? Isn't that causing a problem? And what can we do about it? Today we're going to start a three-part, at least series. It's going to take at least 3 shows, maybe more, as we share the findings, the studies of Jim Stuber. He's the author of What If Things Were Made in America Again, and how consumers can rebuild the middle class by buying things made in American communities. James Stuber is the author of this book that we're going to study, and we are going to tell you how to get a hold of it later on in the show. Jim has a passion for staunching the flow of American jobs overseas and bringing jobs back to America, in a large part due to his family's background in steelmaking in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. In pursuit of that passion, in addition to writing this book, Jim has founded Made in America Again, a movement by consumers dedicated to building healthy communities across America by buying things made in those communities. Jim is also an attorney and an entrepreneur and formerly served as a legislative assistant to a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. He holds a law degree from Georgetown University and a bachelor's and master's degrees in political science from the University of Pennsylvania and Columbia University. Jim lives in Berwyn, Pennsylvania, with his wife, Susan, and their 4 children. And we welcome, he's new to CSE Talk Radio, introduced to me by our good friend with Liberty Tabletop. Jim, welcome to CSE Talk Radio.
Thank you, Beth. Great to be with you.
Oh, great to have you here. Let's cut to the chase. I want to know what prompted you to write this book.
Well, if our listeners can believe this, I had a light bulb moment that actually involved a light bulb.
Yeah, we can believe it.
I took out a light bulb. Well, I took out a light bulb one night. This is the God's honest truth. And I just noticed that on the top of it were the GE logo and in all caps, the word China. And I just looked at that GE logo. You know, this is Thomas Edison and American inventiveness and ingenuity, just all things American. And the thought came to me, wow, you know, if GE's making its light bulbs, of all people, in China, maybe we have a problem.
They went from General Electric to Global Electric, didn't they?
They sure did. and I had been to the Boy Scout store, and I noticed that everything I bought my son had been made in China, Vietnam, and Bangladesh. And I don't even think Boy Scouts are legal in China and Vietnam.
Isn't that amazing?
Because they believe in God and everything, you know. Mm-hmm. And so, but the third thing that really got to me was the Coatesville, Pennsylvania prison chaplain had been to speak to my men's group at church. And I remember sitting there thinking I had volunteered in a prison ministry for 8 years. I knew there was never an excuse for committing a crime, but wouldn't it be easier to keep the young men in Coatesville straight if they made anything there anymore? So it just grabbed a hold of me and wouldn't let go, and I just set out to answer those 3 questions you described in the introduction.
Well, that's what we're going to do, and I think it's going to take us at least 3 shows and maybe more because, and you know, this has been covered so many times. We've covered it before. You'd think that this information would be available, that everybody would understand it, but it goes deeper than that, you know. And before we present that one and let you answer that question, hasn't this ground been covered before? You know, I've been trying for a long time, and bless their hearts, and I mean that sincerely, not in the Southern way. I mean that sincerely. These companies that are made in America are struggling. So they don't really have an advertising budget, you know, and I usually end up giving the store away just to give them some help. And the listeners, the consumers have got to respond if they really want to see things change, you know, turn back and changed, you know, they've just got to see it. But we know, and I had said before, that the reason everyone hated Donald Trump, I was sitting there trying to figure this out. What is it that they all hate about this man when he was running for president? Besides the fact that he was this playboy-type billionaire, you know. Besides that, what is it they hated about him when he was running for president? Why the left and the right both didn't like this man. And it came to me in a light bulb, so to speak. The 2 topics that he was talking about were trade and immigration. And they go hand in hand. And I call them DC occupiers, occupying offices and cutting deals. That's why they're getting wealthy and Americans are losing jobs. And that's why they didn't want him to become president. He was going to mess it all up. We're going into a break. I probably talked too much. And a little cough there. We're going into a break. When we come back, we're going to ask about covering this again and again and why we need to. You're listening to CSE Talk Radio. I'm going to hold off on the phone calls for just a little bit, but I'm going to give you the number. 877-895-5410. That's 877-895-5410. And Jim and Beth Ann, Made in America. We'll be right back.